It's 15:30, so good afternoon and welcome to the special Recreational Facilities Advisory Board meeting for July 24th, 2019. I'd like to remind everyone we are web streamed, and for those in attendance, please silence your phones. We do have quorum, so we can carry on here. We'll go with the disclosure of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? If none, state no pecuniary interest declared. Gord, Ian, Sue, Amy, Crystal, and Chris, and Paul, no. Progress so far. Since January, we've set our terms, created a project Gantt chart outlining the process. We've kind of expanded into advising location selection. We've developed clear location requirements. We've analyzed some potential sites. We've provided some viable locations to council, and we've re-engaged the community for a needs analysis. So I think we're making solid progress here as a board. Right now, we're waiting to hear back from county staff when site negotiations are completed, so we can come up with a good announcement. And we're working hard on refining our facility requirements. We also need to review our process plan and make sure that we're keeping on track. Ian reminded us the other day that we do have a solid plan. We need to get on with selecting a project manager. JJ reminded me last week we got to start looking at 4 types of insurance very soon. And we have to come up and advise council whether we should be pursuing a design build or a more conventional construction bid process. We got to get on with this fairly soon. We also need to lay the groundwork for fundraising and provide some guidance for intergovernmental funding applications. So we're working on that. And finally, we need to communicate our plans to the citizenry, and Sue's working hard with Matt on that with staff. I hope today we can move the stakes a little bit further forward. So, agenda approval or changes. Does anybody have anything they'd like to a change on the agenda? Ian?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Is Plus BG here today? They are. My question would be, would they be open to a question and answer session?
Do we need to do that in closed or open? Yeah. Would you like to do that in closed session or open? In closed session? Okay. We'll add that to the closed session agenda then, if we could. What's the nature of the questions, Arian?
No, just general questions on where they are. I mean, that could be explained to us now, not like in open session, obviously. But it's up to you. It doesn't really matter to me one way or the other.
Okay. Well, how about we tackle that right ahead of the closed session, and that way if there is anything that starts making us feel uncomfortable, we'll just take it into the other room.
That's fine.
Does that make sense? Okay. So we'll throw that in. Ian?
I have a second item, Mr. Chairman, for consideration. Item C on the agenda, AMO opportunities. Should that not perhaps be moved to follow item number 6, because there's some things that are going to be discussed that may impact that particular item. In other words, getting the information that's required. So I'm suggesting it would follow the fundraising portion.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that? Or he just wants to move it to the fundraising portion. He wants to move the AMO opportunity talking points. Okay. All right. We'll take that after the fundraising then. And Sue, you had your hand up.
I'd like to just eliminate under B, number 2 and 3. because they will come up after.
Okay. Amy?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wonder if the AMO, it's coming from me, it will be very brief, if it will shape our discussion if it happens earlier rather than later. You are aware of it, as is the chair, but I haven't had an opportunity to speak to the group in whole about the discussion today and why the meeting is a week earlier and whatnot. So my suggestion would be to deal with that earlier.
Uh-oh, we have to have an arm wrestle now. Okay, why don't we leave the AMO opportunity a little bit earlier then, and we'll readdress it, we'll reattack it as required afterwards. So we'll get the best of both worlds here. Okay. So are we're all set with our agenda then? Can I have a motion to accept it? Okay, Sue, and seconded by Amy, all in favor? All right, let's carry on. Okay, so the project implementation process update. Ian, do you want to take this on and just kind of go through where we are and where we need to go?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to briefly go over the so-called roadmap, which gave timelines throughout this project. I gave this document out at our last meeting in May, and I don't know if everybody read it, but I didn't bring extra copies today. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go through the next 10 items that are on the list sequential in terms of time to get a better handle on this. When I prepared this originally, it did not have reference to AMO meeting and the items that needed to be ready for that. So I haven't inserted those, but they would be fitted in here somewhere. But I thought I'd just talk very briefly on a few of them. So the development of the needs, obviously that's underway, and hopefully that's going to be discussed in more detail today. And that basically is on time relative to how we first started out. Public funding and partnerships, that's an ongoing item. Also, we had preliminary financial analysis. Now this may be in part being done by Plus VG now, I don't know. But again, we had it in there to be completed by the second quarter of the year. The other one was capital funds for land acquisition. Obviously, that's an item that council must be dealing with. Acquisition negotiations for preferred site. And that was to have started in the middle of the second quarter and be completed by the middle of the third quarter. So that's likely relatively close on meeting that time frame. Now, one item in here that is important is the studies related to the preferred site. We had put that in because we'd recommended that council should not necessarily proceed to finalize everything in terms of a specific site until such times as those related studies, whether it be traffic, geotechnical, you name it, okay? And that was to be completed by the end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter of this year. Then we had then council would approve the land acquisition and remove the conditions that would apply on the preferred site. Refine the project scope, again, that was to be followed. Then an update on the preliminary cost estimate and to be included in the capital budget for the following year and so on. And then the other important item was the hiring of a project manager. We had that identified to be done during the fourth quarter of this year. And I think we're going to speak to that today maybe. And then prepare the detailed scope of work for expressions of interest. And then, of course, depending on how council wants to proceed, whether we're going to go with a conventional method or design build. So I just wanted to focus on those few points because they're all in there in the next 2 quarters, so the last part of this year. And I just reminded folks of that. Okay, and Mr. Chairman, that'll complete my review unless somebody has some questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about the process and what it all entails there? No? Okay, we're it's a pretty involved project, and it is a significant sum of money that we're going to be charged with, using to come up with this good design. So we have to make sure that we follow a really rigorous process and make sure we do get value for the money here. And we're not going to be able to pick up the federal and provincial portions of that money unless we follow a pretty rigorous process. I'm going through the Treasury Board project approval directive right now for my own work, and believe me, they put a lot of rigor into anything over $10 million. Okay, thanks for that, Ian. We'll take a look and move on here to the Communications Working Group report. Sue, do you want to talk to the survey?
Sorry, thanks, Mr. Chair. We put together a survey, sent it out via email, via social media, and we got responses back. And so what I did is I put together just a quick little slideshow to show the responses, because I grouped what the groups wanted, the request. And the first one, and the biggest one, was an indoor track. So something that people could use, and I've showed that the seniors could use it, even toddlers and all that, and use it during times throughout the whole day while their kids are at this facility. The next one is the pool. A little harder to see, but in the pool, the requirements were from multiple user groups were a 50-meter pool with 8 to 10 lanes, possibility of a warm-up pool. Big one was family change rooms and storage area. And if you look at some of these pictures here, you see competitive pool area, but you'll also see a ramp going down so that it's accessible to others. There is also a warm-up pool that has sometimes a slope that you can go into. Those are all just ideas, but there is also seating on the bottom picture. There's seating so that there's gallery seating for people to watch. So that is one request. Not one request, multiple requests, because we wanted to keep it competitive, rec, leisure, and an exercise pool. The next one was the hockey rinks. Oops. And the big part of this one was the change rooms, making sure that they're more than just male-female. There's multiple change rooms, 2 rink pads, and that is replacing rinks in our area that are old. Another one was a multi-use gym. Now this is a big one because a lot of the facilities, a lot of people came back that it was tennis court, pickleball, badminton, volleyball courts, basketball, and the ability for volleyball and basketball to even host tournaments, there is a need for an extra gym. And if we could put a multi-use gym with possibly three gyms in it, that could be split for multi-use. And when we're looking at it, you could put multiple lines on the gym floors so that you could, so all groups, user groups could have access to this. And another one is storage again. Comes back to storing community equipment. One is the baseball field at Memorial is used constantly, and they have a great number of kids at midget, junior, and senior age, and that would be an addition to add on the outside is another baseball field, because they right now, through the summer, I know that they bring in multiple tournaments, 16 teams, but right now they have to cut it off at 8, and they have waiting lists to get into their tournaments, and it's every weekend throughout the summer. And they're willing to also help by applying for Trillium grants. Oops. Okay, this one is multi-purpose rooms, and I grouped a lot of the groups in this. There are meeting rooms that could be changed if we put the right flooring down, changed so that they could be activity rooms for seniors. It would be so easy to put in a shuffleboard room in there. You could create a dance studio where there would be ballroom dancing. There is storage along both sides of the meeting rooms. Also, the other thing in each of these meeting rooms, some of them have sinks and water access, but a lot of them had storage along both sides for these groups, really. And that's what these groups need, is storage. And we could do it with multiple clubs. Cards could be played in these rooms. You don't want to be short on meeting rooms, is what I'm seeing there. And the other is hosting conferences, if these multiple meeting rooms could be attached for a big conference room or not, okay? Another one came in with an interesting idea, was the community kitchen, and the community kitchen could be used as part of the community college. I know right now Fanshawe can't host anything bigger because they don't have a facility, but we could have community leisure cooking classes, and outside there could be eating. And I found what was very interesting is creating eating spots for people, because when we come to the facility, we want to make it an all-use facility and welcoming, and having areas for people can eat. And another one was a shared, the Haldeman Norfolk Housing Corporation and Stonebridge Community Services, Crossing All Bridges, are three groups that have asked to be part of. They would like to create an accessibility and an inclusion area where they would have shared office space, and that they would be able to run programs outside of this community, in the community hub, really. And I'm just going to put you thinking outside the box part, because of this being an all Norfolk community hub. There is different things that I saw just recently, is even a library kiosk that you order books online, and there's a small little spot, very small, just a wall and a checkout that you could go pick up library books. And it's creating even a community connection with the library. Another one is in the two center pictures, and it's harder to see, is auditorium seating. And what you see is it's going down, and in the front of that is a big screen where you could host an event, or that could be a drop-down stage, so that there could be different events that could be hosted for conferences, and different groups could use that. As well, in the far picture is also outdoor, but it could be used for indoor auditorium seating that is accessible for all. It has a ramp between the seating so that a wheelchair can go down. It saves the cost of an elevator, and it gives an inclusion part of this. So it's something to think about when we're designing or thinking about it, the hub. And the other thing that came out of the community user survey is repurposing the arenas. There were some suggestions, and there's multiple suggestions out there, but the ones that came is indoor soccer is looking for a facility to host some indoor games. Through the winter, they have to turn away people. I know Simcoe Minor Baseball is in the need of a facility. They lose multiple athletes to other city centers because we don't have the facility for an indoor training. There is the soccer, tennis would like 2 indoor courts. Pickleball could use during the day, they could use a court. So those are different ways that we could repurpose the arenas. There's also the market, there's also the arts as well. And with the survey, in the chart that was handed out, there was a plethora of funding that's available too, that was given. That's all.
Thanks, Sue. That's a fairly comprehensive shopping list. Did we get any details from any of the organizations that specified a track of X meters or a pool of 50 meters? Did they specify they wanted a therapy pool at 104 degrees or anything like that? Were the user groups that specific?
They were not that specific. There was the walking track was 4 to 6 lanes. workout facility with spin bikes, treadmills was one, a 50-meter pool with 8 to 10 lanes. And there were no specifics, fully specific, other than the 50-meter pool with 8 to 10 lanes with a warm-up pool as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sue? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so it's going to be up to the requirements working group to put together some details to those requests and see if we can come up with some kind of square footage for that. Gord, I'll probably be looking to you to fill in some hockey arena type stuff, but we'll be able to do some stuff. Go ahead.
Just on that, I do know I've been talking to the different hockey groups, and as an executive with the Simcoe Minor Hockey, there were some level of detail that was included. Hockey Canada is changing a lot with regards to the boarding system, the half ice, the cross ice hockey. That's now encompassing 40% of the players. The dressing room requirements, not just male, female, but gender identity flexibility. With regards to the seating in the arenas, what works and doesn't work, there are layers of technical, requirements or asks that would be needed for that. And I think whether it's the arenas or these other groups, as we get into those weeds, we can reach back out to them, I would hope, to make sure we get those details.
Well, I think we should start collating all that information at the very next requirements working group meeting so that we can kind of come up with a square footage. I know with gender-based analysis being a very, very important thing, and the Ontario's with Disabilities Act being very, very important as well. We have a lot of space considerations that we may not have thought of in the old designs, so we do have to account for all of that. Are there any other comments for the communications working group? Okay, Amy, I guess you're up for the AMO opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for calling an early meeting, and thanks everyone for coming a week earlier. Mayor Chop and I will be attending the AMO conference with content from staff on all areas and all community projects, and obviously the All Norfolk Community Hub is a massive initiative that we plan to go quite aggressively to Ottawa.
Just for the audience, can you describe what the AMO is?
Yes, I can. It's the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Thanks.
So we're headed to the conference in Ottawa, where we will find out our meeting dates 1 week before attending. So we do not have confirmation that we're going to be able to sit down with the Minister of Infrastructure at this point in time. However, I can assure you that Mayor Chop and I will be aggressively advocating for that and doing our best to discuss the community hub when we get there. We need to be prepared either way, though, and staff have been working diligently on creating reports and presentations on all topics to take with us. So we need to come very prepared, and we need to put our best foot forward with the square footage of what our facility will be, as well as a general figure, a price, a dollar value to go and articulate. And then lastly, some drawings to show proof of concept and what we're trying to do here. So staff have been working very hard, very quickly on short notice to help get prepared. That's why we have Plus VG here with us today, who are going to help us get the ball rolling. But that was the reason for having this meeting 1 week earlier, and I hope that that can kind of shape our discussion. We obviously have a lot of wants and asks and needs in this, and I think it's evident that we need to manage our expectations, but we also have a job to do, I think, that is looking to the future of what potential growth can be accommodated in this facility, and are we going to be prepared for that? Do we need to be prepared for that in the next year, 2, 3 years, and put everything under the sun into this community hub? No, but we do need to be prepared for it. So thank you again for the early meeting date, and I look forward to pushing this forward.
Okay, thank you. And one of the things that we talked about last week was just trying to make sure that our two city representatives are well armed with talking points with respect to the hub. So to that end, we tried to come up with at least 3, and hopefully we'll come up with a few other things that will really help differentiate our hub from Tecumseh, from all the other unfunded hubs right now. So we started looking at things like the Fanshawe link-in and the partnership that we're going to be developing and growing with Fanshawe in this area. JJ is leading our green effort, but yeah, we definitely want to push the environmental stewardship of the land as well as the greenness of the building. And the other thing that we really want to try and focus on, I think, is trying to bring downtown Simcoe's revitalization into the topic. There are some other good things that we can talk about with gender-based analysis being a very key buzzword in the federal level. We can also talk about women in sport, and the representation of women in sport is below that of men right now. But we're building a facility here that happens to have the #1 women's sport in it, and that's swimming. So we're doing something to really try and equalize the balance between male, female, and gender non-specific people by building this new facility and improving the pool. So that's another good speaking point that you can talk about there. Does anybody have anything else to discuss about the AMO meeting? Excellent. Requirements discussion. Does anybody have anything to bring to the requirements table outside of what we've talked about? We'd welcome any details such as rink sizes, change room sizes, what they're doing for male, female, and gender-neutral change room facilities there. I've been doing some research online looking at UBC's change room facility setup, and they have gender non-specific shower areas, clearly with bathing suits, but and lockers going into the pool. So it's very interesting, and it is an evolving status. So maybe that's something that we can kind of leverage as we come up with our design. Okay, nobody has anything else. We'll try and take this, well, actually, Ian, this is where you were going to ask some questions of our consultants.
For the record, really all I want to know is the process in terms of what the objective of Plus VG is, and I think Shelley likely can clarify that. Because I just want to make sure that how it flows into the work that we're doing in terms of our overall schedule and the timing and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to your question, Mr. Neville, I'd like to introduce Ed Bordeaux and Kevin Church, both with Plus VG today. They're here to hear your discussion on requirements and components for the All Norfolk Community Hub. They have been retained by Norfolk County to complete some artist renderings, some collection concept of the All Norfolk Community Hub, so that Mayor Chop and Councillor Martin can make some significant presentations at the AMO conference. There is a very tight turnaround for the work to be completed by Plus VG, so they have been retained, as I said, and as Councillor Martin reiterated earlier today, to do those concept designs. So any certainly feedback from a component or a requirement perspective would be essential to give to these folks today so that they can continue with their work that they will be doing over the next 10 days.
Well, thank you for that. I think if we need to try and fulfill some input into the design today, then I guess we're going to have to revisit our requirements discussion a little bit here and try and throw some ideas out to you guys so that you have some ideas of what our ideas are anyway. Do you guys have any opening remarks or anything you'd like to say? Well, actually, since we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth here, why don't we invite you up to the mic or bring a mic to you, whichever you prefer. But I think there should be some discussion on this so that we can figure out, do we need to provide you square foots and number of change rooms, or do we need to just say we want X number of rinks, X number of pools, X number of meeting spaces, that kind of thing. So, we talked last week in our working group meeting just a little bit about, cost per square foot, and I don't know if that's a reasonable measure for a building. I've been looking at everything from the London Olympics swimming pool to Rio's pool to, little college pools and city pools down in the States, which are not so little in a lot of cases. But, a lot of it comes down to the architectural design and what we're going to put into that. And clearly we have a budget. So we have to be very cognizant of our fiduciary duty on this. We're not going to be building the next Rio Stadium. So, yeah, sure.
To say something, but I better say something. So one thing that I didn't hear was a senior center, and that has to be part of this, considering the fact that wasn't stated, but it looks like maybe the multi-use and some of the other facilities might accommodate that, but definitely the current square footage of the senior center, and Bill's been talking to the group of what you probably need for this phase one. We in Brampton built a pool, and we were probably talking about 540 to 600 per square foot, which would be less in Norfolk, but as well as arenas at about 500. So I think that if you look at what Tecumseh's putting forward, you probably can't go beyond 130,000 to 150,000 square feet for this complex to be under that 60 million threshold. So maybe those are some parameters you could work on in these requirements. And Bill, I don't know if you had anything else.
No, through the chair. No, I thank you for that, Harry. The seniors did stand out that it wasn't mentioned, but it's always meant to be the plan. And you're right. Whether we kind of get tied up on what our ultimate goal is to have into this, but presently, if we've taken the square footage of Talbot, the rec center, and add 20,000 square feet for a seniors, we're at about 150,000 square feet. And if you base that on the numbers that Harry had talked about, that we've explained, that comes out pretty close to the numbers we have talked about. But with that said, even in Talbot, the space probably isn't laid out as nicely or as efficiently as it could be, same as the rec center, that sort of thing. But no, I totally agree with what Harry says. It kind of brings a little bit of concept into this before we move on and give the consultants some guidance with that.
Yeah, we definitely have to make sure that the seniors have a portion of space that is theirs, and then we can probably figure out a way to share some multi-room space with seniors and other user groups as well. So that's something that we'll try and pass on to Plus VG. Amy?
seniors have been consulted through this process, and that is information that staff does have. Just want to bail Sue out here for a moment. She did, connect with them, but this was information specifically from our survey. But I think that's a great point. There are a lot of things that we're not talking about right now that we really need to drill down on how much information we want to iron out today. Childcare, commercial space, outdoor spaces. I just don't think that's all completely relevant to get us AMO ready, but it is a conversation about how the square footage of the overall building and exactly what you said, maybe Bill said it, the efficiency of the layout. I just wanted to bail Sue out there.
Go ahead, Sue.
Just a point of clarification, when you say the rec center, are you talking about the rec center ice? Or are you talking the rec center with the pool?
Through the chair, complete building. Yep.
Ian, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Apologize for my lateness. My question through you, I believe I'm going to direct it towards Bill, and if someone else would like to chime in, I believe we were originally talking about possibly having a therapy pool as well, and maybe like the way I'd like to start the conversation, and I don't see it in the requirements list, and I'm not too sure if that's something that's been explicitly stated or if that's we're operating based on an assumption that could be an option for us. But what a therapy pool is, it's a very small piece of water, basically something the size that you could get a treadmill in. You use it for those who have lost the use of their mobility. It allows them not only to experience the sensation of walking again or being buoyant in water. So it is a very nice amenity for our seniors and our elderly, and also those that suffer from a disability that's physical. In addition to that, those that have experienced a sports injury, they're actually able to do some rehabilitative therapy to heal that sports injury in this type of pool. It's a pretty small footprint, and I know that there's been some successful examples in some other wellness complexes. I had an opportunity, seems like a lifetime ago, but when I was going to school in St. Catharines, I had an opportunity to volunteer at the Welland Community Wellness Complex. And they actually have a hot therapy pool in that location. Doctors are able to rent the space and bring their clients in, and it was a real boon for their facility. They took an old retirement home that was, I believe, Rosewood Senior Living, and they turned it into a multi-use, multi-generational community center. And part of that revamp and that rebuild was building the therapy pool in to their aquatic center. And I think that that would be a nice amenity for us to explore. And I guess my question through you to Bill was, is this something that we're still considering? And again, I just kind of want to dispel the myths, because many people think, therapy pool, their brain sometimes goes to a full-length pool that's going to be heated, and that's not what I would picture a therapy pool looking like. It's a smaller amenity, and really it has a very niche and very specific purpose.
Thanks for that. That's an interesting concept. I hadn't thought about individual therapy pools as much as what I had in mind was behind a 10-lane, 50-meter pool. 10 lanes just happens to be exactly 25 meters across, by the way. So you could put sideways a 4-lane, much warmer pool. What we end up doing right now at Annalise Carr Aquatic Center is on Wednesdays, we superheat it. That pool could maintain that temperature, and it would be a 25-meter pool. So it would be multi-use for the people who like the heat, and then that would be perfectly aligned with a 10-lane, 50-meter pool. So aesthetically, it's a nice match too. But the interesting thing, based on Brantford's current possessions in swimming lanes, not Brant Park, not Earl Haig, but just talking about the existing pools that they have right now. They have a 65-meter pool that's 8 lanes. They've got a 25-meter pool that's 8 lanes. That's both in the Wayne Gretzky pool. And then they've got another 25-meter pool that's 8 lanes in the new YMCA. And if you take their population and divide that by the number of meter lanes that they have, it turns out to be 106.7 people per meter lane. And I only bring that up because I was fascinated to find out that if we built a 10-lane, 50-meter pool in Norfolk and added 4-lane, 25-meter therapy pool to it, that, and we take our 2016 population of 64,044 and divide it by that number, we end up with 106.7 people per meter lane. So that to me indicates that we are competing with our neighboring county in terms of access to the space. So I thought that was an interesting statistic that helped make the case for a 50-meter pool. It sounds like we have enough groups that have also made the case. So, you know, I think the demand is there. In terms of gender equality in sport, it's there. We have a lot of good reasons to argue for a 50-meter pool and some kind of therapy pool, and quite possibly, you know, we might have an individual even hotter pool. I don't know. I've never considered that, but it's worth Plus VG taking a look at for sure and seeing what the additional cost is. It might only be $10,000, $20,000 for you know, a therapy pool like that. It might be a very unique feature in the area. It might be something that attracts those doctors to this area. We don't know.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair. I think that's we're on the same page here. The warm-up pool could very well double as a therapy pool. I envision, you know, having a sling at the end for those to get lowered in and making it fully accessible. And if we could have that option just to explore it at least through the consultants, that would satisfy, you know, my curiosity at least, because I think it would be a wonderful amenity for us to at least explore, if not commit to.
Well, I think the AOD Act kind of forces us to look at all of that kind of stuff, and it will be there's no question it will be an accessible facility with respect to everything. So we just have to you know, that's a given. It's not an option. Is there anything else we need to discuss on requirements? Ian.
Mr. Chairman, I guess just one clarification. In terms of the detailed scope of work for expressions of interest, if in fact we go that route, how much of the work before the August 10th deadline, and that in our plan we have that in the month of December to finalize that. Does this still fit in with everything that you want in terms of AMO?
I think the biggest thing for AMO is just, you know, we wanted some preliminary drawings, for some talking points. I mean, we've got 10 minutes with these guys. It's to start a conversation. It's to show that we're moving forward. It's not that we need the specifics, you know. It's a high level. For me, like, I think what's going to capture their interest is what's going to make our hub different than everybody else's. And we have an opportunity here to, you know, leapfrog ahead of what everyone else is doing because we can learn from all of their mistakes and so on. I think for me, like a big component of is how is the exterior going to be, you know, I want something unique and different that, you know, works with our environment and, you know, has, you know, more than just lead concepts, but, you know, that to me is, it's almost more that kind of fantasy piece a little bit, but with reality. I mean, and we can make the adjustments from there as you guys progress further along in your working group, right? I mean, it's just a concept at this stage. So we can say, hey, we're doing it, like we're, you know, and look at what's different about ours, and this is why it's going to be great. But we are still, you know, finalizing and so on. This isn't like, you know, we're ready to go to a design build tender here or anything.
Well, we do live in a very interesting time, and you know, I've been looking at these buildings since I was a kid. And you go into the Etobicoke Olympium, it's a 6-sided box with no windows, and it feels like you're in a bit of a cave when you enter it. And then you go into some modern facility like the London Canada Games Aquatic Center, and it's glass on both ends. It feels light and airy. I think we can definitely harness a more modern look and feel to the building and make sure that it's harmonious with the environment, both exterior and interior, without breaking the budget, I think. Sue, you had your finger up. Go ahead.
I think one of the requirements would be that we would harvest daylight savings. That would be I would also like to see as well is if we could make this, I want to say zero carbon, after being at Mohawk College and seeing how they have done that, and they have used rainwater to capture that rainwater to filter out and to flush the systems. That would be something innovative. I think we also want to look at I thought was a really brilliant idea there was the geothermal heating, because it took up less floor space there. And what it did is it opened up more spacing for the meeting rooms, computer rooms, all that to be used. They also use solar too in their rooms, above their building. And I think that's something that we need to do is be innovative when we create this hub. The other thing is I think we need to be innovative on how we present the outside, not a normal outside in the sense of we do not want just a building. We want to make that grounds around it to be very inviting so that we're creating a community hub that all people want to come. I'm talking young, I'm talking teenagers, I want to see adults, I want to see seniors all together in one roof, that we're using the wisdom of our elders and we're using the children there, that we create a community almost. And that we create, in this hub, I think one of the things we want to do is be visionary of where we can create eating areas, where we can create little meeting areas that we could gather together inside and outside of this hub even. Those are just some of the visionary kind of things I think that we need to promote. We also have to look at all the green, how we can be green with this.
Crystal.
Well, I think Sue hit it, on the head there, that a big component of this is the exterior as well. I mean, to me, so many of these facilities, you show up and it's just the building with a parking lot, and the building might be phenomenal, but that's the extent of it. And Amy and I just had a meeting yesterday with Young and Free Press, and as they're looking at building, Fanshaw's agricultural program, one of the challenges is they're bringing international students and stuff over, but those kids can't afford to go and buy a farm. And so where are they going to use that knowledge that they've gained at Fanshawe? And so we have to start looking whether, there's setups for them to, become food vendors and, maybe having a market there, like a farmer's market there as well, integrating that kind of thing. But so I think that's what's going to distinguish this in these drawings, like from these guys, that's what we're looking for, is that exterior, that combination of it all, not just here's the building and this is what we're going to put in it. Everybody knows, okay, pool, rinks, great, but
It'd be very neat in the artist concept to see
Yeah.
like a food truck court or something and try and encourage the dining experience. Come to your community hub and have a nice outdoor meal and spend some quality time with your community. Sue.
I do really want to hit also this part is the accessibility for seniors. And not just seniors, but those who are in wheelchairs and walkers. Because I know that after much discussion with some people is one of the difficulties that people have that are in wheelchairs or walkers is bathroom accessibility right at the door. Because that is one thing that I think we need to be innovative in too, because that limits who can come, right? And we need to have that. That's one of them.
And again, I can't say it often enough, I guess, but the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act will It's not an option. We just have to build an accessible facility. And, being as creative as we can so that, let's say there's not even a door to go through, just a weaving passage for the privacy aspect of things, that helps, that kind of thing. Sue?
And one other thing I was thinking is if we had office space or small little meeting rooms in this where parents could meet with their speech path so that they could have a speech pathology while their child's in swimming lessons, where a physiotherapist could rent out a room, as you say, like the therapy, to give therapy in this. So not to be thinking of just a community center, but creating little office spaces that could be rented for certain individuals even.
Well, I think having a commercial aspect to this is very valuable. If you go to the Belleville, the Belleville hub up near the 401, you enter a grand foyer that runs 4 hockey rinks long, and then at the far end there is a wall of commercial physiotherapy and massage therapy and doctors, all centered around athletics and the active community. So I think having that in the future, we can't be all things to all people in with our planned 60 million, but we can definitely start generating the thought processes so that commercial partnerships can be made in the future, and we've got that room for growth. We haven't closed off ourselves to that room for growth. And we're not saying anything that some other community is not saying, I'm sure, but these are things that we've discussed over the last 6 months, and we're just trying to capture them here for Plus VG one more time. Anything else? Great. Plus VG, have you guys got any comments, questions, looking for clarification? Yeah, sorry, Ian's got a hearing disability. He needs a little.
Just with regards to arenas, my question is how many seats? Is one of the arenas larger than the other? So many seats? Like that gives us an idea of what to create kind of in that space.
Gord, have you got that answer? I know Bill does if you don't.
Well, Bill can probably fill in some of the holes. Right now we have Talbot Arena, which has excellent bowl seating, and you have the rec center, which has essentially no seating whatsoever. I think that from those in the hockey community that have been discussing, expect one primary rink, both NHL size, as you referred to earlier, one primary rink with full seating, particularly down to very much like Talbot, down to the ice level, is excellent for viewing, and that's your predominant feature game rink, if you will. And then more of a secondary rink, still with seating. You still need to have that seating in the secondary rink, but obviously you're more weighted to the primary rink for your larger games. And I'm not sure the seating in Talbot, Bill might have a better idea what the capacity is there, but something that is at least that big for a new arena.
Through the chair, board member Gord is pretty well right on. We would expect the full seating approximately 800 to 1,000 in the main arena, and then the secondary arena, which we can call the practice arena for now, probably half of that, anywhere from around the 400 mark is what we're seeing in these. So generally that's one side seating in that, and the bowl seating in the main arena is what staff envision.
And in terms of the gymnasium, we'd probably want some kind of pull-out bleacher system set up down one long side of that. In terms of the swimming facility and spectator seating, the Aquatic Sport Council of Ontario has got some excellent guidelines on everything from the dining facility size, the change room size, and the spectator seating requirements for a regional level competition pool. We're not looking to host the next Olympics or Canadian Nationals, so we don't have to meet the high-end FINA guidelines there. But trying to meet regional competitions will definitely spur a tournament-style spin-offs from this project. Gord, you had your hand up.
Maybe this is just too detailed for what you need, but in full agreement with what Bill also mentioned in terms of seating capacity, the foyer, a lot of the new facilities that are servicing multiple rinks and pools, et cetera, it's critical for some of the groups we've talked to with regards to that being large enough. I know we're talking about square footage. It needs to be a very large space for all the tournaments, et cetera, all that traffic flow, but also needs to be situated in such a way that you can still gate an event. You have to have that control over people. And then the new aspect with regards to the arena is any innovative design with regards to the portable boards and netting that now has to be used very regularly on a day-to-day basis, and how that integrates with your flexible change room layout. So those are pretty critical pieces that weren't there 20 years ago, but are definitely there today.
I'm a little bit worried that this is maybe like too much minutia for right now, because we're not going to be talking about the seating capacity at AMO again. Like just high level, like edgy, you know, what those pieces that are going to differentiate us, and whether we have 1,000 seats or 2,000 seats, I don't, know that they're going to care at AMO. Yeah.
Probably not, and that's where my second comments were probably too minutia, but in terms of that seating and the square footage is my concern, and the foyer, the same thing. When we're laying out something that's going to fit within our projected budget, I think 1,000 or 2,000 seats would be significantly impactful to that budget range.
Do you guys have the information you need to get your artistic?
Nobody talked about diving. Is anybody doing any consideration to do any diving at this pool?
We haven't had any impetus towards putting in a dive well or a 10-meter tower or anything like that. I think we would have to have a pretty strong demand in the county to warrant that kind of expense at this point. That increases expense in roof, it increases expense with concrete and towers and depth of pool and everything else. So we haven't seen that yet. If there's any divers watching, you better speak up soon.
Just one other question. I know Fanshawe was mentioned. Is there anything size-wise that Fanshawe is looking at possibly, or is it just a matter of using the facility only?
Thank you, through the chair and through Mayor Chop. I think at this point, we don't want to overwhelm Plus VG. They weren't expected to do a question and answer today. They have been given a deliverable for some artist rendering, some simple pictures to get us to AMO. All of these details will follow as we progress through the process, but we do want to respect their time and the work that they need to get done on these preliminary drawings. So I think there is enough information. I don't want to cut off Mr. Church, but certainly any follow-up questions that they may have, we can take those questions and get the appropriate responses.
Okay, if that's the end of our requirements discussion, I'd like to push us into, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, Ian, you said December. All hands are on deck, though, if the feds come up with the grant writing required. The election's October 21st or 19th. So if James gets a heads up on the Green Infrastructure Fund or the other infrastructure fund, the $30 billion over the next 10 years, and we have to fill something out by September 20th, all hands are on deck to make sure we do that. So it might not be December. It might be when those requirements come in from the federal government on when those grants are due. So just a heads up. Might not be December, it might be earlier.
Ian.
No, it might be earlier. That roadmap we provided to everybody was a guesstimate based on background experience and normal processes. I mean, if you're expediting because of that funding application, yeah, that may need or necessitate advancing some of that work. But there is a lot of work to be done, and I don't want to understate that. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, can I have a motion that the Recreational Facilities Advisory Board move into closed session at, call it 4:32 PM to discuss matters pursuant to Section 239 Charlie of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended as the subject matter pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Ian. Seconded. Gord, all in favor? Moved. Okay, we're going to go into closed session. We should be done in no more than 15 or 20 minutes. welcome back. Can I have a motion that the Recreational Facilities Advisory Board recess the closed session at, call it 4:46 PM, and reconvene in open session? Chris and Ian, all in favor? Oh. I didn't get all my hands there. That's, I think, the first non-unanimous vote we've ever had. Okay. All right, we're moved on. Gord gave me a quick note. There's nothing to really report in the fundraising. We're kind of waiting on this AMO meeting to find out what we're getting in terms of interest from at the provincial level. And I have a little bit of news. I'll be approaching our MP in the not too distant future to discuss this project as well. Crystal, have you had any engagement with Diane at all?
I mean, I see her all the time at events and stuff, and certainly we've talked about it and so on.
Yep.
I
I am aware that her late husband was a big proponent of a center of excellence.
She is certainly on board.
Good, good. Well, hopefully,
Catching my drift.
yeah, as former Treasury Board Chair, she can probably help us navigate the federal government.
She definitely could.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Any other comments on the fundraising? Okay. So we're supposed to have a meeting next week on Monday. What's so funny over there? We're supposed to have a meeting on Monday, but I think we've covered off all the business that we need for Monday as a board. What I'd like to propose is that we break Monday's meeting into working groups, and if we have enough interest in the at the board level to participate in the requirements working group, we can certainly hold it in public session. But otherwise, we'll just have some sub-quorum working groups on Monday at 3:30, and we'll meet here. We'll focus primarily on requirements initially. Gord and I are going to meet to talk about the fundraising. And Sue, you're more than welcome to have a communications working group if you wish. Does that sound like a solid plan? Do we need a motion on that? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll let you know that. For the requirements, is it possible that we could get Plus VG back for the requirements working group meeting? Or do you think they have all the guidance they need at this point?
I'll leave that to Shelley, but I think we're both thinking they're probably not going to be available.
Through the chair, likely not available on that short notice, and I'm cautious of what is in their scope of work, and it's clearly not a lot of consultation and meeting time, so we have to be cognizant of what their intended project scope is at this point in time.
Well, that's a great point, and thank you for that segue, because we are finding that the board is supposed to try and steer the ship, but there's a few aspects of this that are kind of a little bit of a surprise here. So we just have to make sure that the board is aware of what the scope is for Plus VG, so that we don't overtask or overask from them. I just want to make sure that we have the tools we need to properly give advice to council and make sure that we are steering this thing in the right direction. Okay, so the meeting on the 29th will just be working groups, and I think we're ready to adjourn today's meeting. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Ian?
Really quick.
Go ahead,
So
Crystal.
just so we're clear, so I think that the working groups, everything should just proceed as you guys were proceeding. We just wanted, it was a very, very, very small contract with them to just do some sort of just some rendering, some photos, so that when we go to AMO, if we are lucky enough to get a meeting with these guys, we can sort of give a very high level. That's why even down to the seats, I just don't think it's critical at this point. I want you guys to take your time as you would and get the requirements in place, and then we will modify. There is nothing there that won't be unmodifiable to suit the new requirements kind
Well,
of thing.
and that's kind of the guidance that we need as a board, because Plus VG is also a design-build firm, and if they're bidding, we need to make sure we get as much detail to them as early as possible so that they get the right bid. But if they're just hired on as conceptual artists right now, then I think, what we've given them is more than sufficient.
Yeah.
But, the risk is, if we end up using them for more stuff, then, there's the flag of conflict of interest, but there's also issues with respect to, have they got all the detail that we wanted to get to them early enough so that they didn't start turning this whole thing pear-shaped. Sue?
Understood.
Just for a point of clarification, it's the AMO that you're going to. We'll find out the funding. At that point, you'll have a conversation. We are still picking a location, right? And figuring out, the particulars are still a little bit away off, right? Okay.
There's going to be no decision on funding at AMO.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, getting some face time there and showing what we're doing in Norfolk and, getting people talking about it kind of thing so that they know it's coming.
All right. Final comments before we adjourn? Mover for adjournment? Sue? Seconder? Amy? All in favor? Okay, the next official RFAB meeting is also falling on a statutory holiday, so we're bumping it up 1 week again to August 26, 2019. So that will be the next official RFAB gathering. Thank you very much.